Greetings! After painting a bit more with Gansai paints lately, I got curious about how these paints would behave if I were to try painting galaxies with them. I proceeded, as I usually do, using 4x6 watercolor paper, cold press, 100% cotton, made by Fluid. Same brush, same process. The paints mixed well and made for lovely effects on the paper. And then they dried. And this happened. 3, 2, 1, color shift! And a pretty extreme color shift too. Not that this result is bad, it's just strikingly different than what it looked like when the paints were wet. I used the Gansai white to make the stars, and they became much more subdued as they dried too. So that ended up being muted galaxies. Pretty, but unexpected. And that got me thinking, because my color reference chart for the Gansai paints is a whole lot more vivid and bright. These galaxies, even if I laid the paints pretty thickly, are much duller. I thought it might be the fact that I used absorbent cotton paper, so the colors don't lay as much on top of the paper as they do on my swatch card, which is cellulose paper. The first test I did was to pick up the pad of Canson XL cold press watercolor paper and make some swatches on there. I also want to test if the dullness comes from mixing the colors as opposed to having swatches that are not mixed. The pure swatches had a very minor color shift, but the mixed color tests had more shift happen. They stayed generally more vivid than my galaxies on cotton paper, but still lost some of their intensity. To fully compare both types of paper, I picked up some cellulose 4x6 blank postcards by Strathmore and set them up like I did the first two galaxy paintings. I picked the same colors as far as my memory would let me. Once they looked good on paper, I let them to dry. Reveal in 3, 2, 1, color shift. Well, that's still pretty bad. I had tried to maybe put even more paint on the paper, but it didn't change that much the outcome. The mix that stayed the most vivid is the test one I did on the Canson paper, with a lot of dark black parts. The galaxies are still pretty in their own rights, and they have the proper effect, only it's duller than expected. I think these tests further show how Gansai paints are not the same as Western watercolors or gouache. They are a whole other, different thing. Kuretake markets their paints as a crafting paint set over here, but that might not be the best way to view these either. Everything about these paints, from the pan size to the paints formula, is different. From doing these tests, I'm taking away the idea that it's probably best to paint with these paints in a way that makes great use of the white of the paper and very little use of mixes. It goes along with the fact that this set has a lot of color variants. Painting these galaxies also made me curious about the best way to use Gansai paints, so I might look into that more in a future video. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Gansai paints. Feel free to share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, have a great day, bye bye!